Welcome to Asian Music Idol, your ultimate backstage pass to the hottest stars and stories in Asian pop.
Okay, so what happens when an entertainer, steps away from the formula, the one they were kind of given? In this deep dive, we're exploring excerpts from the material Wang Yibo, From Idol to Authentic Artist.
Right.
We're going to dive into what this source tells us about his journey, basically, how it describes his shift from, let's say, a carefully manufactured image to really carving out his own artistic presence. That's the mission today, to unpack the source's take on that transformation.
Right. And these excerpts, they start by placing him in his early context. It notes that he first gained prominence with UNIQ.
UNIQ, yeah.
A group very much structured along K-pop lines,
Yep.
And the material highlights how, in those early years, he fit a specific mold, the skilled dancer, presenting this very polished image.
Aimed for broad appeal, I imagine.
Exactly. It really frames him as working within a clear industry framework back then.
Okay, but the source suggests something changed. It talks about a point where he seemed to stop just following the script, let's say, and started creating his own path. How does the source actually articulate what that looked like or sounded like?
Well, according to these excerpts, the transition became really noticeable with tracks like No Sense,
Right.
and later, My Rules, Satchu. The source points out that with these songs, the lyrics just felt much more personal. The delivery had this sense of urgency, and the production itself struck the source as, well, raw, bolder.
Intentional.
Deeply intentional, yeah. It felt less like performing a part and more like he was expressing himself, deliberately building his own distinct voice through the music.
It's fascinating how the material describes it. It uses a phrase like sound of rebellion, doesn't it?
It does.
Suggesting he was consciously carving his own space. Especially the source notes within Chinese hip-hop, which often leans more polished.
Yeah, more conventionally polished sounds, exactly. The book describes his music in this phase as deliberately leaning into, well, grit.
Grit, okay.
Yes, and the source uses some pretty vivid examples. Discussing No Sense, it highlights how the aggression isn't just in the beat, it's in his performance.
How so?
It describes him holding the mic like a weapon.
Wow.
This imagery, the source suggests, implies he's not just performing, but actively challenging doubters, maybe even pushing back against parts of the system that shaped him initially.
So, like defiance.
Exactly. The material frames his rapping style here as someone finally free, where, each syllable feels like an act of defiance against being boxed in or misunderstood.
Yeah, and then there's his dancing, of course. That's so fundamental to him. The source definitely acknowledges his skill there, right?
Yeah.
Describes his moves as precise, poetic, powerful.
Absolutely. It praises his skill, but it also indicates that his approach to dance evolved right alongside his music.
Ah, okay. How did that change, according to the source?
Well, the source argues his dance moved beyond just being like visual flair or something extra, especially in live performances. The material suggests his dance becomes this kind of kinetic language, a direct translation of the song's emotional core. Its soul, really.
So it's all connected.
It's in that fusion, yeah, where the music and motion seem intrinsically linked, springing from the same internal place. That's where the source feels he most fully embodies himself as an artist, guided by his own sound, not just executing steps.
Now, stepping away from a successful formula,
Yeah.
that can't be easy. Does the source material touch on the challenges involved?
It does, yeah. It talks about the price of authenticity.
Okay.
The excerpts discuss the inherent risk involved. The possibility that fans used to a softer pop image might not follow him.
Right, or critics might dismiss it.
Or critics dismiss it, or even figures within the industry could see it as him, stepping out of line. The source explicitly acknowledges there's a real cost tied to pursuing that kind of rebellion.
So taking all this together then,
Right.
where does this journey, as the source describes it, seem to lead him?
The material basically concludes that what Wang Yibo is creating isn't just like a temporary product, it's a lasting presence. It uses this really powerful metaphor. Track by track, he's trading perfection for truth.
Trading perfection for truth. That's quite a statement.
It is. And in today's pop landscape, which the source notes is often full of invitation, this specific path is presented as something almost revolutionary.
And the book seems to wrap up by suggesting he doesn't need to, project or over-explain himself anymore.
Exactly. The music itself does the talking. In every beat and lyric described, you hear an artist who, according to the source, is no longer held back by that fear of being truly seen for who he is.
It implies, maybe, that once an artist finds that genuine self-expression, that freedom,
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to go back to the old constraints.
That's the strong implication, yes.
Yeah.
That freedom becomes essential.
It really does make you think more broadly, doesn't it? This source presents Wang Yibo as someone who made this profound trade-off, swapping perfection for truth. So consider this for a moment, thinking beyond just this artist. What does it fundamentally mean for anyone to move from performing an expected role to genuinely expressing their authentic self? And what kind of freedom, or maybe what significant price comes with making that shift?
Thanks for watching Asian Music Idol. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated with the hottest buzz in Asian pop culture.